Ooh, I don't know. It looks like it's working this time. Bow chicka bow wow. If so, you all about ready to do this thing? Getter's live. Rumble's live. Locals is live. Ooh. Yeah, we're ready to rock and roll. Had to just make sure. All right, let's do this. All right, folks, welcome inside the numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Looks like everything went off today without a hitch, which is great. A couple things here before we start business as usual. Speaking of, the Public Polling Project is doing well, very well. So I'm leaving it up right now to finish, obviously, the one national project that we already did. But if we keep going at this kind of pace, it's August 2nd. We could conceivably begin to start raising enough where we at least poll bi-weekly, which would be nice. I don't want to get everyone's hopes up and say we can hit a spot where we're polling weekly. Although I got to tell you this, and I will tell you this. If we get to a certain point, I will kick in the rest. If it means polling weekly, I will, because I think it's important. Look at now. Look at this now. We got to stop and do a whole show on what we're seeing with the polls and what it means for the Electoral College, because there's just so much BS out there. We have to stop and look at them. I used to do a lot more of what we're going to do today. And then, I felt like we were just beating a dead horse. And if I have to keep repeating this stuff, then what's the point? We're just going to dry up content. But it appears that we at least need a refresher kind of episode like this every once in a while when the stupid season comes around to put everybody back down on planet Earth. Unfortunately, there is still so much disinformation, misinformation, outright manipulation that shows like ours that attempt to give people the tools to be able to spot that are outnumbered, greatly outnumbered. All right. So, two things we're going to talk about a lot today. Let's just flatly explain what I think is going on in the polls, put them into context, explain what that means for the Electoral College, and then tackle what I think is the other major lie going right now. Whether or not Tim Walz broadens Harris's appeal, or whether it signals that, in fact, they're running a very different kind of campaign. Because I got to tell you something. Republicans, whether they're lawmakers, social media influencers, there's a reason the media uses the same handbook every 2 years, every 4 years. It's because it works. The right falls for things every damn time. They constantly fall for the same scams. They constantly fall for the same narrative pushes. They're no better than the legislators who are afraid of the media and wind up betraying their voters because they're afraid of the media. And Democrats never have that problem. All right. Democrats do have a major problem. And if I have time, I would like to get into it because ultimately this does matter to me as a pollster, and it should matter to other pollsters. How the media, it's basically an extension of what we're talking about right now, how the media pushes narratives and how they get certain people to believe certain things. And everyone's, look, I'm not beating up on the right here alone. If I have more time, I'll beat up on the left equally. The fact of the matter is, take somebody like Jessica Tarlaw, for instance. I brought this up yesterday. She absolutely believes that Donald Trump told people to inject bleach. It is a hoax, of course, dating back to COVID, but she absolutely believes it. The same tactics and the same recycled tactics that they use on the right, they use recycled tactics on the left. They're just a little bit different, and everybody falls for things over and over and over. Like you could see, Tarloff was on her phone live on television as Greg Gutfeld made an utter, complete fool out of her. She really believed that because for her, she trusts these institutions. She lends them a certain degree of credibility as a member of the ruling class, as a member of the credentialed class, as a member of the privileged class. She lends them, without question, a certain amount of credibility and legitimacy that they don't deserve, and they certainly have not earned, but she is put into that social box. So she has been put into a construct and she cannot get out. The right is a little bit more mystifying to me because the right is inherently skeptical and they are inherently distrustful, and yet they fall for the same shit every damn 2 and 4 years. And that is a little bit harder to explain. The left is constantly looking for someone to tell them what to do. Do this. I'm the authority. Follow the authority. I'm a central planner. I know better. You know what? I understand and I recognize your credentials in your field. I recognize your credentials in this role in society. Tell me what's best and I will listen to you. And in exchange, I expect that you will listen to me when it comes down to my credentialed role in society. And of course, they're all corrupted by ideology, so none of those credentials mean a damn thing. But they believe it because that is their order. That's their construct. Am I explaining this correctly? Or easily? Is everybody following? The right is difficult to understand because they don't believe in those constructs. Or at least they say they don't, and yet they fall for it every time. Let me ask you all a question out there, and be honest with yourselves. How many of you did not listen to me when I told you don't believe or trust Nate Silver or share his bullshit model that isn't a real model because it is going to come back and bite you? How many of you did not listen to me? How many of you went to your Facebook pages? How many of you went to your exes? How many of you posted, oh, look, even Nate Silver has Trump ahead? How many of you did that? Let me ask you another question. Who gave Nate Silver the polling information in 2008 that made him pretend that he had a model to begin with when in fact he didn't? He had polling information from a certain campaign and he pushed that as a fake model, and they happened to be right. He was going to beat McCain by a bigger margin than people thought. Right? That was Barack Obama. That was David Plouffe, actually, who gave him that, right? When he was that blogger pretending to be a modeler because he couldn't be a sports handicapper anymore. He failed at that too. So basically, you got duped by Barack Obama because Barack Obama engineered this entire thing, or Obama's team. He lost control of it along the way, even though, from what I understand, he had a hand in some of these anti-Shapiro things, but we'll leave it at that. But basically, you got duped by Barack Obama. Why would you trust this guy at all? He is kicked out. He is totally irrelevant. He's kicked out of the website that he founded because they were losing and bleeding millions of dollars a year. They were costing their parent company millions of dollars a year, and his forecasts were constantly wrong. And don't give me the likelihood excuse. He was and is always wrong. He has not been right since 2008. Even in 20, he was not correct. Now, who carried the state of Texas? Who carried North Carolina? Who carried Florida? Who carried Iowa? Who carried Ohio? Did Donald Trump really have a 45% chance of carrying the state of Iowa, or are you just an idiot? Did Donald Trump really have a 40% chance to carry the state of Florida, or is he a fraud? Can't be both. Yet the Sean Hannitys, blah, 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 blah. The John Solomons. Come on, John, you're on the right. Stop pretending you're not. Or at least you make your living on the right. So why do you keep giving credibility to these people who are part of the narrative war, and you get had? They make fools of you. Total fools of you. Here is, before we even get into any of the maps or the polls, here is the state of the race. And if you didn't see the Economist YouGov poll, let me enlighten you right now. Both candidates fell. It's a 2-point race. The IBD tip poll has it a 1-point race, with Donald Trump still carrying independence. The NPR Marist poll, we're going to look at their map in a second, was Harris +3, but it all came from the West. Her gains came from liberal Western areas where she shored up the Democratic base, and she is losing the Midwest by the margin that Joe Biden was losing the Midwest by in their prior poll. Here is the map. And yet the media narrative is that now she's the favorite. And by the way, Frank Luntz is another one. How many of you lent credibility to Frank Luntz? The truth is, she cannot be the favorite if she is polling weaker than Hillary Clinton. We have now had the gold standards from both California and New York, Siena College and PPIC, and by the way, Berkeley as well. We just had the statewide gold standards come out for these big blue states, and yet she is running behind Hillary Clinton by 8 points and running behind Joe Biden by 10 points almost. The national popular vote must be put into context. It's being used as a propaganda war. We're in a propaganda war right now. But everybody knows that Kamala Harris will need a significant popular vote edge to make sure she does not lose the Electoral College. The CBS News YouGov poll that came out on Sunday, we went over that one already. It was backed up by the IBD tip poll. That is a Trump Electoral College win. He is already at 261 electoral votes, even in the national polling, as Harris ahead. The battlegrounds inside the national poll, inside there, they oversample the battlegrounds. They're not overrepresented, by the way, for the millionth time. You can oversample something. The problem is whether it's overrepresented. Please don't use those terms interchangeably, because they also make a fool out of you when you do that. I know what you mean. You know what you mean. But if you don't use the terms, then you get dinged by Nate Cohen like you did on Monday. And I'm just saying generally you. I'm not making this into I'm not singling any one person out. I'm just telling you what I see, what I've been seeing. I just, before we get into the specifics of the Electoral College, let me just ask this very simple question. Is this your first election? And I hope he doesn't mind, but I was talking to Troy Olson yesterday. He's co-author of The Emerging Populist Majority. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. And Troy, I won't divulge anything, about our personal conversations, but except for this. He pointed out, and because I did say this, they're acting like this is their first election or something. And he did point out something, that in fact, for many of these so-called influencers who pretend to be experts on Twitter on the right, it is their first election. It is. We're Generation Xers, man. We've seen this over and over. As Robert really just so beautifully put in his thesis over a year ago now. Is it over a year ago? As he so beautifully put, we are part of a generation that grew up believing the bullshit, got lied to so many times, failed so many times, that yes, we know it when we see it. We don't need Rush Limbaugh at noon anymore to tell us when the drive-by is coming. We don't need that anymore. We know it. We've seen it. We're conditioned to it. We know how to spot it. As a pollster, I know when they start doing things like releasing polls that are over a week old or a week old, where the interviews were conducted 7, 8 days ago, when they start doing that and then not telling you, not making that clear, and when they start doing things like that and hiding response biases, refusing to release, like we see with the poll today, refusing to release education and geography when they have done it in the past. When we see things like that, we know it. We know it's coming. But a lot of these other people, Troy's right. They're Zers and or whatever. They're younger. They're just younger. They don't know this. But some don't have that excuse, and they need to check themselves. Because it's like, as long you hate them, but as long as you keep falling for this over and over and over again, they're going to keep doing it. And here's the kicker. Because they're trying to manifest something that's real. Do you understand what they're doing? They're bullshitting you and repeating it long enough, where it can become real. It's an incredible phenomenon. It's warplanes. Military industrial complex. I can't even do my show with these bastards. Are you done? Anyway, they're trying to repeat this stuff into existence. Like, for instance, Trump is doing bad with suburban women, and then he didn't do bad in 2016 with suburban, especially suburban white women. Yet they didn't stop, did they? They just kept repeating that. And it became this huge social bias campaign, which, by the way, was David Brock Incorporated. It was brilliant. All the memos went out. They all took it, though. It was a great idea. They ran with it. You saw it on your Kenny whatever Netflix comedy specials. You saw it on your favorite sitcoms. You saw it in between commercial breaks over and over and over again. Reinforcement. Polls, saying one thing. Even though they were just wrong about his performance with suburban women, you would think that people would not like immediately believe it, but they did. And they rolled into it. And what happens 2 years later? It becomes socially unacceptable for suburban educated women to support Donald Trump. They manifested an accelerated process that pushed the group away from not just Trump, but Republicans in general. Now, that had been going on beneath the surface for a while, but they saw an opportunity with someone like Trump and they took it and they manifested it. What I'm telling you is when you fall for these things, you're making it easier for them to manifest that reality. You're making it easier. You're helping them. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, I really don't know how much more to break this down, but understand that's a very real phenomena and you're contributing to it. All right? The entire point of the show sometimes feels like I'm just beating a dead horse over and over and over again. How many times did I have to repeat this shit with Shapiro and Tim Walz over the last week, 2 weeks? People who should be reinforcing the truth are instead contributing to the panic and misinformation, which now leads me to have to do this show again. Let's look at the map. NPR sponsors this Marist poll. Here's their map yesterday. Here's the kicker. Here's the funny thing about this map. The hell did I just put? I know I just had a new vapor pod. Somehow, they have Minnesota blue, which is defendable. I can understand that. Light blue. That's defendable. And it's not because Tim Walz was chosen as the nominee. Tim Walz will have absolutely nothing to do unless he uses his powers as the governor to electioneer. As I've explained to you now a million times, the governor has enormous power over how elections are conducted and prosecuted in a state, how votes are counted, and the real impact of a governor, whether he's on the ticket or not on the ticket, will be stemmed from that. Do you think Ron DeSantis fired Brenda and Linda and the Gold Coast magically became 25 points more Republican? No. Brenda and Linda cheated a lot. Josh Shapiro, for instance, will have enormous amount of power over whether or not Philly can do what they do every year, stuff the ballot box. Let's cut the shit. There was just a huge indictment not long ago. It's on the FBI press release section of their website. It included a former congressman, election judges. That is the power that they have. Appeal up and down a ticket. At the top of the ticket must carry the election themselves. I have watched men that I know for decades now, academics, supposedly model authors. I have watched lectures 10, 15 years ago. More. What the hell year is it? It's 2024. Oh my God. Media appearances. Probably dozens, if not over 100 of them from these men. Arguing what I have told you to be the case. That vice presidential nominees are not worth the hype. It is Washington talk and the Washington political class and consulting class. They believe it hook, line, and sinker. But guess what? It's not true. People have done entire theses on this subject alone. It's been studied and re-studied and examined and re-examined ad nauseum. And these men spend decades of their careers arguing the same damn thing. And yet, for the last 5 days, they've been on TV throwing all of that away to bullshit you. And way too many people, both on the right and the left, fell for it. This is the NPR map. Their own poll, again, defendable to have Minnesota light blue, but it will have nothing to do with Tim Walz, and I'm going to show you that in a second. Minnesota light blue, okay. Their own poll, let's take a look at it. Trump, or the Midwest, excuse me. The Midwest, Trump +7. Let's refer back now to what it was in July. This July. Because, of course, the Marist poll, their poll, the NPR Marist poll, was absolutely one of the most liberal polls, even when Joe Biden was facing a historic collapse. When others had Trump leading by 2 to 8 points on the Real Clear Politics average, they still had Biden up by several points nationally. Now they have Harris up by 3 after they had Trump up for the first time ever in their poll. For the first time ever in their poll. They had Trump up in their last poll, which, by the way, they changed their methodology to get. And Nate Cohen from the New York Times wanted everybody to know. Remember, we even brought this up on the show. How Nate Cohen was like, everybody should know this Trump +1 poll that they just released. It's the first time that they have ever done panel polling and online components. And he was right. Actually, he was right. Why would they change their methodology right before, during the campaign to push out Joe Biden, during the Obama-led campaign to push out Joe Biden, which Kamala Harris absolutely participated in and privately threatened to use the 25th Amendment to get rid of Joe Biden if he did not concede? It was a coup by the vice president backed by Barack Obama. Why would Marist conveniently change their methodology to give you a Trump +1, something they never found in 2 cycles of presidential polling with Donald Trump as the Republican nominee? Can you tell me that, please? By the way, the other one was The Economist, which we're looking at today. The YouGov Economist, the YouGov CBS News poll, the YouGov Yahoo News poll are all the same data set. It's the same data set. It's just
They are doing different things with that data set. CBS News did not find it as rosy for Harris as The Economist decided to wait it for when their polling editors got their hands on the data. Do you understand? It's the same data. And guess what? YouGov is buying responses from our people because they got too big for their britches and had too many clients and couldn't field them themselves. It's all sourced from the same place. They're choosing to weight differently, and then they're presenting it to you as different polls. Anyway, the Marist poll has Trump up by 7, yet they have Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania as toss-ups. If you remember the CBS News YouGov poll that I just mentioned, they have Trump up in Wisconsin. I believe, yes, I want to say that Pennsylvania and Michigan. I had it up the other day on Monday. We went over it. I don't want to revisit it. But it was already Trump at just under these electoral votes right here. The difference is they're giving Trump Nevada and Arizona because, let's face it, Kamala Harris has led in one poll in the state of Nevada over the last 2 years. Like, just, a short-term bump. No model, no legitimate model would move a state based on tied or within the sampling error leads. Any, doesn't matter if it's changing the polling direction. Within the sampling era, no model worth its weight in salt would shift the outcome, the likelihood, the probability of that state going for one candidate over another. That is not a model. That is their opinion. In fact, the only real model that you can count on, apparently, is the decision desk. Since they're the only ones who decided until the convention is done, we don't have data for all the variables in this model. We can't run the simulations. That told me immediately only the decision desk has a real model. The rest are totally full of shit. And because the other slime bag is full of shit, he can, on a Friday, use the S&P as an excuse as to why he's still calling the economy good. And then while it tanks on Monday, still pretend like it's not a problem. That isn't a real model. That is his opinion. As Robert and I explained on Monday, you can't argue over whether or not economic indicators are going to impact positively or negatively. An election, you have to have a clear, defined variable for an election model if you're going to use the economy as one. You can't just make it up as you go along. And what really matters is what voters perceive to be the case. Because some failed sports handicapper and then failed election forecaster thinks the economy is good, you're going to ignore the voters? Give me a break. Even if we were to entertain this lead as true and real, and according to the decision desk, right now in the head-to-head, Kamala Harris has where are you, decision desk? I was just looking at you. Are you ready? A 0.2% lead over Donald Trump. Now, it's flipped in the Real Clear Politics average, and I think she's got like a 1 point something lead or whatever it is. But the fact of the matter is, that is a sampling error and nowhere near what she needs everyone should know this by now. Everyone, it's 0.5. So actually, the decision desk and Real Clear Politics are very much right in line. For Tubby Boy to go on TV and say that she's the front runner is either intentional or just his usual grift. I don't know. But this is not a huge bounce at all. This is a sampling error and likely a response bias. Somebody said to me, can we go over this poll? And I think I will. Can we go over this poll and can you tell me how it's possible that urban voters in the Marist poll moved to Trump, but rural voters moved to Harris by over 10 points? My answer is very simple. I would love to definitively answer that for you, but unfortunately, they don't release enough information because they're not transparent enough to give you either source data or cross tabulation that's granular enough to answer that question. For instance, how we do male and female, gender and race, race and area, education by race. Why does that matter? How many educated women were in your rural sample? Most of the time, subgroups, these like discrepancies in these subgroups iron each other out. And I'm always telling you that sampling errors for subgroups are higher. And at the end of the day, if something looks a little screwy, as long as all things are equal anyway, as long as if something looks a little screwy, then it really doesn't. It's not worth like obsessing over because things tend to iron themselves out. For instance, is Trump's vote in some of these polls that had him at 30%. Is that crazy? Does that make the entire poll wrong? But if you look at the white vote, it's like Trump's ahead by 9 points. Well, Trump is not going to win the white vote by 9 points. He's going to win it by more. So these subgroups and their larger sampling errors iron themselves out. That's typical. But in an environment like this, you can't think this is not a typical environment. And if there are going to be response biases, you're going to see them jump out in things like that. And I would love to be able to tell you if that's the case, but unfortunately, there's not enough information by area to do that. In fact, none of these geographical demographics, these geography demographics are being released in any granular fashion whatsoever. Also, are we no longer, and I'm not saying this about NPR and Marist, clearly Marist is funded by NPR and NPR is funded by you, so you pay for the Marist poll. Instead, you should just support the public polling project because we have been more accurate and it's not even close. And by the way, there it is. There you have it. There's the map. If I am the Democratic nominee, I am very concerned by the Marist poll yesterday. Trump has a significant lead in the Midwest, and you took back some blue areas, some blue divisions. And that's not going to be good enough because as a Republican nominee, I will trade your ass 10 points in California for Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. No problem. You could have it. You could beat me like a drum. 2-1. You could beat me overwhelmingly in California. I don't give a shit. Give me Pennsylvania. And that's what the Marist poll is showing. Okay, enough now. I'm on the show and you should know that. Telling you, I've been banning people. I kid you not. Don't get pissed at me if you get banned. If you're calling me or texting me during the show, if it's not something that is going to be helpful to me, it's just like your opinion or something, don't get mad when I block you. Don't bitch to me. Don't send me an email. That's rude. All right. Next up on the list here. I don't know if I want to show this yet. I don't know if I honestly can show this yet. But I do want to bring this up about methodology because, listen, when he's right, he's right. And here's another thing to consider with the Marist poll before we move on, okay? How could I put this nicely? I'm not sure there is a nice way to put it. They have no experience. There's no way to put this. There's not a nice way to put this. This is a group of people who, for years, called our experimentation with various different and newer data collection modes and methodologies to reach voters that they were not reaching, and we were not reaching using their traditional methods. These are people who criticized the hell out of us for it, shamed us for it, gave media quotes about how it's not real, and that's, so you have to understand they have zero experience in doing this. They are wholly untested when it comes to using mixed mode. You can't just jump into it and think you know what you're doing. I would wonder whether Maris can produce any private study that they conducted that they did not release publicly, because we do this all the time. Did you do any private studies to help you get a grasp on how to properly conduct survey research using these different modes? Or did you just get an account manager at Cint and you think you know what the hell you're doing? I really would love an answer to that question, because you can't be random digital dial for 30 years and then think, I think I'll get an online panel and buy some responses, and then think you know how to properly design or even create. I mean, quotas. I mean, did you have quotas? How did you do it? Because it doesn't say anything about it. Are you ready? I mean, and for those of you who have seen a proper methodology statement from the Public Polling Project, you would know this is like the clip at the end of the article, at the end of the press release. This is not the PDF explaining how you account for design effect, for different voters to have a propensity to be online at certain times when others are not, and then different voters just being online much more often than others. For instance, I would point you to the Harvard-Harris poll, where they explain that in great detail. I could point you to the methodology area on Big Data Poll. You could click on the little PDF. It'll tell you all about that. Them just deciding. Oh, and by the way, even Rasmussen, who they all hate, explains how they use a portion of their sample being online to balance, basically to account for their other mode being way too older, and how they design for it to make sure that it's representative. I don't know how well you could see that. Let me zoom in a little bit. But also, this is too small of a sample for an online panel, especially if you're a new online panel pollster. Too small. There are people who've been doing this far longer, like Morning Consult, with like 4 times the sample size, and they still can't get it right. Let's be real here, folks. Can we be serious? We're talking about a 3.3, right? Isn't it plus or minus 3.3, the sampling error, which they incorrectly call a margin of error, by the way, if I remember correctly? There's a difference. Oh, no, they said acceptable sampling error. That's true. It is. Actually, for the subset, it's about 5% for the partisan subsets. And the result for which subset? The register. Oh, no, the likely voter subset is actually 3.7. So understand, this is a tie. This poll is a national popular vote tie because their sample is so small. Our sample is much larger. Theoretically, we're 1.8. They're 3.7. So in any event, by using live interviewers by text or online, they were contacted by a multi-mode design. The sampling frames include still RDD plus listed landlines. So this time they went back to having that as a portion of their survey. Weird, right? RDD cell phone plus cell phone sampling based on billing address to account for inward and outward mobility, and aggregated online research panels. That's awfully short, isn't it? And aggregated online research panels, meaning they went to a marketplace and they said, can you fill this for me? They didn't, if it's aggregated, there was no specifics. Like, I have spoken to you about this a million times. We have been doing this a while. Some panels got crazy during COVID. Unfortunately, we don't work with some people we used to work with. It was like a bunch of people who were just like, Orange Man bad, Orange Man bad. I have nothing else to do but pull on my wang while I'm on Zoom calls at work. And I'll sign up for this damn online panel so I can click Orange Man bad all day long for $2.50. There is a panel that is superior to all others, and that marketplace matters. We should have Mark Mitchell on to talk. Mark Mitchell and I have detailed comparisons of marketplace panel sources, and they are not at all created equal. But they don't know that. They just started this shit. They have no idea. Trust me, they have no idea. Survey questions are available in English or Spanish. Good. Phone and online samples were selected to ensure that each region was represented in proportion to its adult population. They used the American Community Survey from 22. I kid you not. For age, gender, income, race, and region. Maybe that can help explain why their vote is 63% white. 63%. That is a choice by the pollster. The voter file is a little over 70% white. The census voter validated study from 2020 said the white vote share actually increased to 71%. The voter validated study from Harvard Harris to Co-op was a little bit less, but about 70%. Just, it's like rounded to 70. The exit polls were a little less, and they, of course, are exit polls. Edison Research's national exit poll, or the National Election Consortium, was 67% white. The AP Votecast, which is now what Fox News, the Associated Press, they abandoned the NAP because of their failures. They abandoned them, and they now do their own thing. In AP Votecast, they were 74% white. 74. Yet they are choosing to use the American Community Survey 5-year estimate for age, gender, income, race, and region. Results are statistically significant within 3.3 percentage points. In other words, Harris's lead is not statistically significant in this poll. 1,513 registered voters is about half of our minimum sample requirement for a national poll at Big Data Poll. That's how small this sample is. When you're using a mixed mode component like this, this is a small sample because you're random digital dialing to landlines, you're random digital dialing to cell phones, and then you're also, of course, using aggregated online panels, and you're doing what they're trying to tell you is that they're doing some live agents they're counting as text to online. Each of those modes, unfortunately, this is true. That is the problem with the modern polling industry. Each of these modes will reach certain groups at different rates. So you're basically you're going to have, folks, with this many different modes, with only 1,500 voters, you're going to have the potential for a subgroup sampling error within each mode, let alone for each demographic group. So you are really asking for it. You're asking for it. We oversample on the phone. We oversample online. We oversample in text. We oversample everything because there are so many pitfalls. And I guarantee, to answer that question from Twitter yesterday, I guarantee you, if they gave me the source data and I plugged it in a market site, you would see that the rural vote is like 60% female or like 25% post-grad degree or something. And then the urban vote would be like 54% male and like 32% non-college. Something like that is what you're going to see. And that's what accounts for the crazy geographical findings. The geography demographics. That's what happened to Fox News 2 months ago when everybody else had Trump up between 2 and 8 points. And Fox News dropped to Biden +2. When you looked inside the poll, Trump and Biden were tied among urban voters, yet Biden led among rural voters. That was a response bias within their mode. Fox News just started doing mixed mode. They don't know what Darren Shaw doesn't the hell he's doing, because Darren Shaw has been on Fox News to trash our methodology of mixed mode surveying for years. This is new to him. He has no idea. Trust me, no clue. Evident clearly by ridiculous findings by geography. I'm trying to help explain this stuff. And we're trying to do an apples to apples here. And I appreciate, I'm not going to bring him up because I'm not going to say his name. He pissed me off a couple of months ago, and I'm not going to give him credibility because he's trying to like crawl his way back. But I appreciate attempting the apples to apples comparison. Look, this poll had Biden up by this much in July. That's true. But it's not really apples and apples anymore, because the poll before this one began to include other modes. That's not apples to apples anymore. I'm not even sure it's apples to oranges. It's like apples, oranges, and bananas all mixed up in one, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't know if the banana needs to be sliced or peeled, or the apple needs to be peeled or sliced. Like, they have no effing clue. Trust me. So hopefully that puts that in at least some context here. All right, it's 2:47. I got to shut up and take a commercial break, and we will do that. Sure, we'll do that now. Let's just do it now. All right. We'll see how it goes. But there's no doubt there's volatility all over the place. Monday, the volatility index was up another 45%, even before markets began even trading. It was up over 100% already. So with all of this crazy nonsense going on, it's not going to be surprising if people go and look for a alternative place to find protection for their investments, or diversification, of course, right? Stocks are unpredictable. Inflation has a huge impact on the value of currencies. And that's why it's time to talk about Freedom Gold USA. If you've ever thought about investing in gold or silver, or you're just interested in diversifying your investment portfolio, Freedom Gold USA is definitely a company that you should check out. What I like about Freedom Gold is the people. Brian and his staff and his team. They really are all about helping you make the right investment choices, and with confidence, to give you the information you need to do that. Look, there's more to love about them. They guarantee competitive pricing on some of the best quality and purity gold and silver you'll find. You know you're getting a solid deal when you don't have to worry about extra fees. They give you free shipping and insurance on all orders, including the one that is a special deal just for our listeners and viewers. You might still even get some qualifying free silver or free silver on qualifying purchases, but you'll get a $500 credit towards opening any new IRA if you do. Here's the kicker, though. You go to some of these places, they're going to tell you $50K commitment, maybe $20K commitment. Even Freedom Gold, which is on the lower end, is usually still a $5,000 commitment to get started. Not for you, not for viewers and listeners of People's Pundit, just $500. They have dropped that just for you. And you get thrown into a prize pool. I will announce who wins, but somebody's getting some free silver just from taking that deal. Believe me, I would love to be in that prize pool if I could, but I'm still not going to pass that deal up. Anyway, it's hassle-free, no pushy sales tactics, and they really are all about just helping you reach your financial goals in a way that worked for you. If you want to learn more, give them a call, Freedom Gold, at 888-279-3592. 888-279-3592, or super simple, check out their website. That's for us, freedomgoldusa.com/rich. freedomgoldusa.com/rich. Go there, see what deals you may qualify for, folks. Again, the number's on the screen. One more time, 888-279-3592. All right. You know what else too? Let's give it another 10 minutes or so. What's up, Madam Producer? Oh, you look adorable. You changed. You look adorable. What you doing?
About to go some serious food shopping.
Do I want chicken cacciatore tonight? Yummy.
I guess that's a yes.
And I'm not just talking about the chicken cacciatore.
Oh my
There's
God,
nothing
it came
about
from nowhere, yo.
there's something about ladies, it's true. I'm not gonna lie to you. Your husbands will find you more attractive making them a meal. The truth is, a way to a man really is through their stomach.
You just discovered this?
It's I know it's maybe I was just raised old school. I've been accused of being a misogynist once or twice. I don't know how that happened, but like cleaning, like cooking a meal, I
It's
love
like-
that
it's
stuff.
just like the old-fashioned, it's wholesome. for
Yeah,
them.
it's
That's
wholesome,
what it-
I guess. Yeah, and I'm not above it. I love to cook. I wish I had more time to cook with Laura. We remember when we had more
when we were
time
young and
together.
free.
Some of the best memories I have of us are
I'm proud of
cooking
you.
at that very meal together. Do you remember our apartment in Red Bank
Okay, yes.
when I worked on the
With
street?
the cathedral ceiling.
Cathedral ceilings with cedar beams.
Mhm.
I know I hated my job. I did was Wall Street stock jockey, really IPOs and stuff. I couldn't stand it. Made good money, but I hated it. But when I wasn't killing myself, I still always managed somehow to get away from Pelk and all the rest of the guys and get home and cook cacciatore together. You remember that?
Or you remember Sundays, well, not Sundays, Saturday.
Sunday was grandma's. We would go to grandma's. Yeah.
But Saturday was ghost hunters with mac and beef.
Oh
as a
my
meal.
God. Yeah, because we were too busy. So we would watch Ghost Hunters and paranormal. What was it like? I don't know that we would like. Yeah, we loved all the paranormal stuff, and we would have these like mac and cheese with beef meals. Mac and beef stofers because we didn't have time. We'd sit on the couch,
Mhm.
watch the shows,
And then you go over proposals.
and I'd go through people's. Yeah, I'd go through their prospectuses for IPOs, and I'd go through people's holdings because I was constantly worried my bosses were dirtbags who were overexposing them. You know what I mean? And I lost sleep over that shit.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't cut for that stuff. I just didn't want to be, you know? And it was before the financial crisis. And I
And
just
then you tried
knew
to
it was coming.
prepare them
I
for
did.
it.
The Lehman bundle. Oh
Yeah.
my God, when they bought all those Lehman bonds,
You're like,
unload
"No."
them. I'm like, nope. Nope. They were like, you'll be fired. I'm like,
Okay.
fungal.
That's
Nope.
good for you.
I've been in their homes. I've been to their families' weddings, their
Events?
their events. No, 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 no. You're welcome, Mr. and Mrs. McMahon. I still remember all of them. I still do. Lee, here, Rich, take my plane and go show your wife Egypt. Since you guys love ancient Egypt so much. Wait, what?
Come again?
Remember that? Yeah, I'm going to screw that guy over. I hope he's doing all right.
Hey, you set them up for success.
I did, yeah.
What they did afterwards is on them.
Yeah.
All right, love you,
Good
boo.
people. You can, it's amazing. You can find good people. Love you too. You can find good people anywhere. You can find them anywhere. Even in like that place. And I'll tell you, I mean, they made this is why I tell you, like, who cares what like some modeler at JP Morgan says? These people know their world and they know their money game better than anybody. And to them, you really are just dumb money, right? And they're going to win every time. Oh, and not every time. GameStop, obviously, didn't win with them. Did you, Ken? But for the most part, the Citadel. For the most part, though, they're going to win. But they don't understand politics at all. They don't understand Main Street at all. You may hear me like go on a tangent about this in a speech or something like that, but it's totally true. And Steve Bannon knew that too. Bannon said that all the time because Bannon and I both were trapped on Wall Street for a while. That's roughly at the same time, in fact. And we both knew these people are totally clueless that there's an entire country out here. They don't know what it's like outside these four walls. They really don't. This world that they're in, they view that's the entire universe. And there's whole entire floors of some of these buildings that are dedicated to trying to predict the political environment and how it will impact the economic stability of various nations, including our own. And they're totally hopeless at it. They are not good at it whatsoever. All right. With that in mind, there was something else. Oh, right. Okay. This is the last time I'm going to do this. On Monday, we talked with Robert about Josh Shapiro. I can understand, and I'm just going to tell you this right now, speaking to all these Republican consultants and friends and donors and Trump supporters and Trump people, they were concerned about Josh Shapiro. There was, I'm not going to say which one it was, but there was an entire state party who's trying to get a senator elected in total meltdown. They were like, it's over. It's over. She's going to pick Shapiro. It's done. It's over for us. Pennsylvania is gone. And that's it. We're not going to get the Senate seat. Probably not going to get the Senate. Trump's definitely going to lose. It's 4 years of Kamala. I'm like, oh my God, I hate these people. Hate is a strong word. I always tell my kids, don't use the H word. It's a strong word. I do hate the media. I'll say that. Big fat H. Hate them. Because they're the most negative force in our society. Corporate media is worse than video games that promote violence. Corporate media is worse than TV shows that promote debauchery. Corporate media is aimed at all of the most unstable of us, right? They find the most rabid ideological people they could find. They find all of the people who are dying to be a part of something. We always want to be a part of something. We can't stand to be meaningless. Our life has got to have some kind of a meaning. It's why, for the same reason people join MS-13 is why people join Antifa. They have hollowness, you see, and they want to feel like there's something, and they're big, and they're a part of something, and they matter. And they take all of these unstable assholes whose parents have been stuffing them with Prozac for 25 years since they were in like freaking kindergarten. And they dump the most hateful, dangerous, explosive powder keg lies on them until somebody goes nuts. I can't stand these people. I watched Jim Costa, and if Laura was still standing here, she would chime in. I watched him try to fake being attacked at a Trump rally in Tampa, Florida. By the way, I watched all the other cameramen and newsmen and news teams watch him do it and do nothing. As if it was perfectly normal to watch Jim Costa fake being accosted by a Trump supporter. Juicy Smollett, Michael Brown, Russia collusion, injecting bleach, horse paste, all this shit. Nonsense. Until finally somebody tries to take a shot and kill the former president and likely president of the United States. They are the most negative force in our society. And they're stupid. They think they're smart, and that's the problem. They think they're smart. They just mistake the fact that they have so much power at their disposal. They're not actually successful. They could do so much more with it. They're in fact stupid. They're just privileged. And they have a handicap. It's like giving somebody the 6 ball to play pool or game of 9 ball all the time. And they win because you're giving them the 6. And they think they're a great pool player. You're not a great pool player. You get spotted the 6. Every time. Yet the right again falls for it. Shapiro. He's going to be on the ticket. He's taking away Pennsylvania. Now here we are. Tim Walz broadens Harris's appeal. No, he doesn't. Tim Walz
didn't even broaden his own damn appeal. I don't know why we're talking about this again. Back to Tom Bevan. 2, not 1, but 2 tweets today from Tom Bevan, who is, of course, one of the big shots at Real Clear Politics, trying to explain to people the media is full of shit. Steve Kornacki himself tried to do a great job and explain to everybody that, in fact, Walz did not do anything miraculous in his run as an incumbent, by the way, as an incumbent in the state of Minnesota. He simply did not. What? Oh, that's CNN's poll. Okay. Do I have to play this really? Do I really have to play it? I don't think I do, but maybe I should. Just to preface, yeah, maybe I will play it. Just to preface, what I'm going to show you. Okay. This is not debate. It's not debatable. And I can't believe we're debating it. And I can't believe the right falls for it. He's hokey rich. It's on my own locals page. He's hokey rich. I don't know. I don't think you're right, man. She didn't pick him because they're anti-Semitic and couldn't pick Josh Shapiro. She picked him because he's just so, he broadens her appeal. Oh my God. Stop. There is no evidence other than your own opinion to support that claim. A claim, by the way, that's being made by a political party who's lying for propaganda, being backed up by the state, the media's, the state arm. I mean, really, the propaganda arm of the state, which is the corporate media. And you are contributing positively to that effort. I'm sorry, but there's a perfect example of one, when some days I'm sitting around going, what the hell am I doing? It doesn't seem to be sinking in. Am I doing something wrong? Am I saying it unclearly? Have I not done enough episodes about it? Have I not explained the relationship between the vice presidential nominee and vote preference? Have I not correctly explained or sufficiently explained the little to zero predictive value that gubernatorial races have on someone's positive performance at the presidential level? How about the relationship between the popular vote and the Electoral College? What am I doing? So let's go over it again. Maybe somebody else can explain it better than me. So here is Steve Kornacki from MSLSD, MSDNC, whatever you want to call it. He's the most level-headed guy in all of mainstream media, and he works for the acid trip left-wing nutcases at MSNBC. Go,
now,
Steve.
Here's the key, because this county, Democrats used to be much more competitive in. Look at this. In 2012, Barack Obama won 43% of the vote in this county. It was only a little bit more than 10 points that he lost to Romney by here. The floor fell out for Democrats here when Trump came along in that Clinton race in 2016.
Wait, what? What was that? What? When who came along? Because I heard something different by the whiny little bitch cowards from National Review. Oh my God, Trump has got to be a plant. He's a plant. He's here to destroy the Republican Party. You destroyed the Republican Party, you friggin' fraud. You destroyed it. That's why Trump's here. Don't you get that? Trump would never even be here right now if it wasn't for you and your president, the first evangelical president who went on to commit a war crime and destroyed the economy. That's why Donald Trump is here. Look in the mirror, ugly. Look at your own ugly ass face. That's why Donald Trump's here. You want somebody to blame? Don't blame the voter. Don't blame the social media influencers. Take a look at your own ugly ass. It's you.
And they haven't recovered it since. And that Walz performance here, it's a little less than Biden's number. It's more than Clinton's. And it's a far cry from what Obama was doing here. And again, I'm showing you one. This is a stand-in for dozens of counties in Minnesota where you saw the same thing.
Which I'm going to show you in a second.
With large rural populations, blue-collar white populations, where Obama, and some of them he was winning, others he was holding his own just a dozen years ago. This is where Democrats have lost ground. And Walz in 2022, he didn't gain any ground that the Democrats had lost. He didn't do that here. He didn't do that in other counties. Walz really owes his victory, that that margin, he got 8 points there statewide. He owes it to the Twin Cities area here.
Woo!
The area
What?
where
what? What? I don't believe that People's Pundit guy. He's in the right-wing ghetto. Who'd you hear that from? The People's Pundit? Nah, bitch. Steve Kornacki on MSNBC. Because it's true. This isn't up for debate. It's not a matter of opinion. There is a right and a wrong answer here. Picking Tim Walz tells us two things. One, the Democratic Party has a wing that is so anti-Semitic they cannot pick a Jewish man as vice president anymore. This is not Joe Lieberman's Democratic Party anymore. She picked the guy from Minnesota who couldn't perform barely any better than Hillary Rodham Clinton in the Obama-Trump counties. She did not pick the Jewish man who won 15% of Trump's voters. 15%! All across the state. Not just in rural Pennsylvania, but he won as many Trump voters percentage-wise in rural Pennsylvania than he did, like in Beaver County, for instance, than he did in the less conservative Trumpy areas of Pennsylvania, such as Montgomery, Delco. Look at Berks County. Look at Lancaster, where he damn near tied. You looking for some?
Yeah, sorry.
It's all right. I'm on a bit of a roll. That's okay. Can you please, before you go? I love you so much.
Yeah,
I really do. And I don't know which one that is, but I like it. So let me know when you run low on it. I think that's my way, ladies. I think that's my way. Big fan of my way. Big fan of my way. People's Pundit's a big fan of my way. That is a very liberal map. That shows zero appeal to blue-collar, working-class voters. She didn't pick him. She didn't pick Shapiro. She picked him. Part of that is definitely the Jewish factor and the anti-Semitic factor. The other part tells us no matter how much they claim that he broadens her appeal into these rural working class areas, that's a load of horse shit. She's going for the 2012 strategy. The 2012 strategy is, I don't give a damn about the middle. I don't care about you white people. I don't care about you independents. I'm going to juice my base. I want black women to come back. I want Valium, wino suburban moms to vote for me in huge numbers. I want every single sandal-wearing, rural, liberal cat lady in Vermont who smells like patchouli oil to vote for me 95-5. That's what she's doing here. This is a man who said, when the number 2 issue is immigration and border security, and not just our poll, basically every poll, it's inflation, cost of living, and then immigration, then jobs, then either abortion or threats to democracy. It's almost that lineup in every single poll. And in our poll, abortion, took the number 4 spot from threats to democracy, preserving democracy, threats to corruption, things like that, government. Gallup has it immigration first, inflation second. I don't know how they found that. We do not. Maybe we're wrong and Gallup's right, in which case she has no chance to win the election at all. This is a man who said, I'm going to build a ladder high enough for illegals to jump Trump's wall. This is a man who said one man's socialism is another man's being neighborly, or whatever the hell his quote is. This is a very liberal man who, with no evidence at all. In fact, there is not that there's no evidence. There is evidence. The evidence shows he doesn't broaden her appeal. And yet you have these like so-called new left journalists. I'm not going to name any names. We all know what we're talking about. We have like new right people all collectively gaslighting their followers and collectively gaslit themselves, apparently, into thinking that this actually broadens her appeal. It does not. Again, I don't give a shit what your opinion is. I don't care what you think. You think what you think because you see the world through a certain lens, like all of us do, through all of our biases and our assumptions, which guess what? Are false. If you believe Tim Walz broadens her appeal. Because unfortunately for you and your false assumptions and your biases that led you astray, the data doesn't back you up. And the only thing that matters is the data, not your opinion. But I grew up, and this is my experience. I don't give 2 licks. Let's take a look at your county where he got his ass kicked. He didn't do any better than Joe Biden. And in many areas, just as bad as Hillary Clinton. What he got was a big margin in Hennepin, a big margin in Ramsey. He got the benefit of even suburbs in Washington and Dakota, for instance, being much more educated and much more liberal than they would be in a presidential election cycle. Even though, yes, they are blue, Donald Trump was able to tighten Minnesota because he got about 46% of that vote in 2016. In 2020, he did not. It's that simple.
Democrats in Minnesota and all these other states are already doing well. It's sort of the standard Democratic victory model in a state like this. It got Walz in 2022. This is the biggest county in the state. This is where Minneapolis is. Hennepin County. Walz wins this by 44 points. Look at all the votes that came out of their total. It's huge. And again, that's right in line with what Joe Biden did in 2020 when he won Minnesota. And again, just
whoa. Let's go back a second. Sorry, Steve. I want to make you look a little foolish here, but Scott Jensen, 26.8. 26.8, mate. And instead, Trump, 27.2. Whoa. You mean to tell me that Donald Trump did a half a point better than Scott Jensen did? Because I was told that somebody like Scott Jensen would do better among Twin Cities suburban women. That's what I heard.
That's right in line with what Joe Biden did in 2020 when he won Minnesota. And again, just wind the clock back here, 12 years ago.
Whoa. So wait a minute. Hold the phone. Trump only did a point worse, yet lost the state by 5 more points. Totally different equation. Third party. And this is why what Robert and I were saying on Monday is very important. In truth, I am mocking some of these people to be funny, but there is an enormous opportunity to push them to a third party candidate because the truth is they have told us they have disliked Kamala Harris for the last 2 years. The media hype and propaganda is causing a bump in her numbers. Some of that is response bias. Some of it is real. They're not in love with Kamala Harris. They're not. She is the flavor of the month right now for anti-Trump people. But 2 years ago and 2 months ago, they disliked her vehemently. There is a way to push her down closer to Clinton. Much, much. And by the way, notice Romney did 35% in that particular county back in 2012, yet got creamed by twice the margin.
But this was still a blue county, but less blue. So it's the suburban areas, the metropolitan areas that have gotten much more blue. And Walz performed just like Biden did, better than Clinton did in places like this. And then in the rest of greater Minnesota, small town Minnesota, where the Democrats have been losing ground, Walz performed basically just like Biden did as well. So, look at his electoral history. Tim Walz is in 2022. And the idea that he's got this automatic appeal with these small town areas in those three key battleground states, you don't see it in what he actually did on the ballot in 2022. Now here's.
And he was an incumbent governor. And this is important because as an incumbent governor, this is the easiest environment to outperform it. The easiest environment to outperform it. What do I mean by that? If you don't know what I mean by that by now, boy, I'm going to get ham here. When Tip O'Neill said that all politics is local, he was really talking about governor races. Partisan, the nature of the electorate is not as strict in gubernatorial elections as they are in Senate and presidential elections or federal level elections. And Senate is even less so than president. Roy Cooper can win re-election in the state of North Carolina the same year that Joe Biden loses. The Republican incumbent governor can lose his own re-election in the state of North Carolina the same year that Hillary Clinton loses. Bradenson can be a super popular Democratic governor from the state of Tennessee and still get crushed by Marsha Blackburn for U.S. Senate. If Andy Beshear right now ran for Senate in Kentucky, he would lose. George W. Bush won 70% of the vote when he was running for re-election in the state of Texas. He won 59% of the vote against Al Gore. Same state. Mitt Romney beat Martha Coakley by 5 points in the state of Massachusetts. Yet he got mollywopped by Barack Obama when he ran for president in the state of Massachusetts. I mean, do I have to keep going here? Vermont, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, all elect Republican governors, but are not going to elect that very same person for president. Not going to happen. Right there, Johnson, one of the strongest performing Libertarian Party candidates, the strongest in the modern era, easily won as a Libertarian when he ran for re-election as governor of New Mexico. Won easily. Did not win the state of New Mexico when he ran as the same party for president. When you are running as an incumbent, of course, you have an even stronger tailwind pushing you forward. This should have been the year when he could show that he could do better in some of these Obama-Trump counties. It wasn't, because he doesn't have any appeal to these voters whatsoever. Josh Shapiro wasn't even an incumbent. Yeah, granted, he ran in his basement against one of the, I don't even want to say one of the worst candidates. The team was awful. Mastriano's team was awful. I'm sorry if you're a part of it and you watch the show. I know some of you do or did. Don't tell me it didn't take Laura 2 weeks to track you down for an interview, because it did. It's awful. And yes, the RGA screwed you over. The Ricketts family are a bunch of trash scumbags. Straight sat him down and were like, sorry, you're a Trump guy. You're too Trumpy. We're not going to help you. All of that, yes. But Shapiro still won 15%. He wasn't even an incumbent. And yet, if those voters went to the polls and their choice was between Donald Trump and J.D. Vance or Kamala Harris and Josh Shapiro, who 15% of them voted for, guess what? They're going to vote for Donald Trump. Not Kamala Harris, because she picked Josh Shapiro. Now, are there always anomalies in statistics? Of course there are. But guess what? They would be so marginal, they could easily be offset by Biden voters in Scranton or Lackawanna or Luzerne or Monroe or Pike or Northampton, where Biden could run much stronger and has than modern Democrats. And they're not going to vote for the Democratic nominee anymore because Kamala Harris is way too radical for them, and she's not a working class appeal. They were going to vote for Biden. Now they're going to go to Trump. We spoke to a lot of voters in the state of Pennsylvania who voted for Trump in 2016 and said that they were going to vote for Biden. Now, Trump did a very good job getting new people to the polls, but there was the seasick voter out there. Remember the seasick voter we talked about, which I brought up again Monday on What Are the Odds? These are the people who felt like, I'm not safe because of COVID. Things are unstable. And because Biden is Scranton Joe, man. He's Scranton Joe. Come on, man. They were cool with him. They'll never be cool with a liberal like Kamala, a faker. She's not authentic. Major problem. Again, that's another thing. Is the candidate authentic and does he have charisma? Yeah, Trump doesn't have charisma, but she's got charisma and authenticity. Okay. Bro, blow me, bro. She's in the South. She adopts a friggin' Southern black accent. The woman was raised in Canada and with a privileged Indian upbringing. What are you talking about? Is that my opinion or an objective fact? Holy crap. Let's look at the map. More maps. More maps. More maps. Here we go. Dun, 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 dun. Hold on one second. Copy image address. Here is the Z map. Scott Jensen, Tim Walz, 56.5 to 39.4. Tim Walz, 39.4. Let's go. Hold on, I didn't get I thought I had the other one up already. And I got Obama's map up, which is what I'm trying to show you. Are you ready? That's Ithaca. If I said that right, I'm sorry if I said it wrong. That's the county we're talking about. Donald Trump, 57.5. Joe Biden, 40.7. Walz actually did worse. He didn't. He did 2 points better. 2 points better. 1.2% better. Barack Obama. Bear with me here, folks. Bear with me. Barack Obama. 50. Hold on one second. Where is it? DFL. Obama carried that, didn't he? Hold on. I'm trying to show you Obama's map. I get the margin correct. I think their margins are wrong. Let me just show you this. Bear with me. There's Barack Obama's map. All right. And it's up. You can see it, right? Yes. Good. Thank you. Look to the west of that a little bit. Pulling it up again. I am not even going to try with some of these. I got to have Troy. For the love of God, Troy, will you come on and give us a crash course on how to say these names? Kuching? You could really mess that up, couldn't you? You could really mess that up and say something. Mediaite's going to clip that shit, put it up there. What a misogynist the People's Pundit is. He said this word because I said it incorrectly. You could totally see that, right? Troy, you got to come on and prevent me from doing that. Tim Walz, 39.4. Joe Biden, 38.5. 0.9% better. Incumbent re-election year. By the way, Barack Obama carried that county. Beltrami, sorry. Joe Biden, 47.4. Tim Walz, 44.9. He did even worse than Barack Obama. Joe Biden. And of course, he did worse than Barack Obama because Barack Obama carried that county. Moving on. Kitson, Joe Biden, 38.25. Let's call it 38.3. Tim Walz, 35.8. Actually did worse. Guess what? Barack Obama carried the county. You see where I'm going with this? Do you see where I am going with this? There's Barack Obama's map. We could just keep on going. Traverse, Joe Biden, 35.5. And as you can see, Barack Obama carried that. All right. Tim Walz, 33.6. Less than Joe Biden. Tim Walz won re-election because the electorate has changed. And what used to benefit Republicans in midterm elections now benefits Democrats. Higher propensity educated voters come out at higher rates, obviously, than the working class vote. Not only did he get huge margins in Dakota and Hennepin, but he got higher turnout rates than Scott Jensen did in the rest of the state. And he didn't do horrible. It's just that Minnesota is a high participation state. It's just that when there is a drop-off in midterms, it's disproportionately working blue-collar voters. And even more so, by the way, blue-collar men. So it really stings for Republicans. All right? As you can see, Barack Obama not only won St. Louis in the Iron Range, he extended it far, far out. Barack Obama did start to weaken in some of these other Iron Range areas, but he still held them and he maintained them. And you could see Lake County, for instance, Donald Trump got 47.2% of the vote. He almost took it. Look, Scott Jensen did a little bit worse, but Tim Walz and Joe Biden's margins actually about the same. The difference is that Jensen lost more of the vote to third parties. But Walz only did marginally. What was that? 52.4. Joe Biden, he did about 1.7 points better than Biden. But the real drop off there was that Jensen did not get all the Trump vote. About 2 times that number in the difference, the disparity between Biden and Walz, 2 times that number was lost out of the Trump vote for Jensen to these other candidates that you see here. Like, McTavish got 35 votes, 0.6%. It's not that big of a county. James McCaskill, 1.3. Steve Patterson, 1.2. And that disproportionately was pulled away from Jensen. And why would that be, by the way? Why would that be when you had somebody like Joe Jorgensen only get 1.16%? Because these are the voters that are part of the realignment. They show up for presidential elections at higher rates than they do for midterms, and they'll vote for a Trump, but they will not vote for a vanilla Republican. They're not going to do it. Boy, the storm is moving so slow. I still hear it. It's unbelievable. Do I have to really keep going here with this? Or do we all see the conclusive effing evidence that Tim Walz does not broaden her appeal whatsoever? In fact, this is risky. I wonder at the end of the day whether or not it was worth abandoning the anti-Semitic wing of the Democratic Party for picking Josh Shapiro, because if they lose, if Harris and Walz lose, it's going to be because neither one of them could reach these Obama-Trump voters. And Tim Walz, simply, Barnes is right. Tim Walz doubles down on her brand of the Democratic Party, which is an extremely liberal brand. Extremely liberal brand. And are you serious right now? Oh, come on. I suppose there's nothing I can do about storms, but if it falls below a certain range, we're going to lose internet. I can hear the cans being smashed up against the side of the house. So there you have it. There you have it. This will be one of the worst picks for vice president if they lose, because people are going to go back and say what Van Jones said quietly the other day. Well, he didn't even say it quietly. I mean, he said it. It's just he was trying to say it tactically. Let me put it that way. He was trying to have some tact when he said it, which is that you picked Walz because of the quote anti-Jewish bigots in the Democratic Party. And I don't think Van Jones sometimes dishonest, okay? But he's actually someone who's not stupid. I've met Van Jones at events. I don't know if you remember, talking about criminal justice reform. Trump was still president, and we're talking about different policy proposals. And the whole point was whether or not Donald Trump was basically stealing the issue of criminal justice reform away from Democrats. I found him to be a bright guy. I did. I found him to be a smart man. Dishonest sometimes, but that's like, he feels that's his job to like spin it in the best way possible for his team. That's not my job. I don't give a shit about any team. Team is wrong. They're wrong. What's right is right. End of story. But he is a partisan, and that's his role. But I did find him to be a smart guy. And here he's trying to put his usual Van Jones pro-Democrat spin on something when he knows this was not good. This was not a good pick. Now, they may pull it off anyway. I'm not saying she can't win this election. She can. But it's not because she's a good candidate or people love her or she just made the best vice presidential choice in the world and she's got such a broad appeal, or even that the fundamentals support Harris winning this election. They don't. The fundamentals support Harris goes down in flames. Barnes and I did this on Monday. I'm going to continue to go over different ones as we go along. Not only do fundamentals such as perceptions of the economy, approval, whether or not there are foreign policy catastrophes going on and people feel stable or not, wage growth, right? There are various things, voter registration trends, which Democrats are losing in droves. Now, in 2020, that was the first time that model failed, along with the primary model, which is funny. You can't even use the primary model here, though. You can't, because Democrats don't believe in voting anymore. So they just believe in selecting and rigging. So I'm sorry. Again, objective fact. You don't like it? You think it sounds partisan? Kiss my ass. You just pulled a coup on a sitting elected president who won almost 15 million votes that none of them earned. And because Barack Obama didn't think he would win, he's out of there. So don't lecture me about partisanship or democracy. You're effing up the entire thing, man. But here's the kicker about that. Maybe this should be an election variable, an election forecasting variable. Barack Obama is notoriously great when it comes to political instincts that have to deal with himself. He's notoriously awful when he's taking the outside looking in approach. His instincts suck. Bigly. Anyway, this is not a stupid guy. He knows what I'm saying is true. The fundamentals don't support her winning. They don't. They don't. But that doesn't mean she can't win because of the BS. And of course, he knows that. So he's going to put the best spin on it that he possibly can. But let's put it up here because I want you to hear this. Not just the People's Pundit saying it.
Do you think it was a little risky, though, Dan,
Yeah.
that she didn't go with Shapiro to kind
Yep.
of lock
Yep.
down Pennsylvania. I mean, yes, David Challenger was saying earlier, just because you pick him as your running mate doesn't mean you automatically win Pennsylvania. But I got to think it would have helped just a little bit.
Hey, listen, the conservatives, the right wing, the Republicans, they were chewing their fingernails down to the knuckle because they were afraid of a Josh Shapiro. They were
Timeout. That's true. I'm sorry. It's true. I won't give any of you up, even though you're a bunch of sniveling little cowards. But the amount of phone calls, the fear, the trembling bottom lips, the chewing of the nails on the other end of the line, I just stopped picking up the phone. The donor class, the consultant class, the pack runners, the bundlers. I just got over it. I was just like, shut up. It doesn't matter. You're overreacting. They were terrified of Josh Shapiro. Terrified. Now, there were some people like on the new right, like Jack Posobiec, who were like basically, oh, please do this. Robert Barnes, oh, please do this. This gives us an enormous opportunity. Like Robert and Jack earnestly talk about being authentic. Honestly believe that Josh Shapiro would allow them to exploit things that they otherwise would not have been able to exploit. That being said, the real smart people were not really afraid of either Shapiro or Walz, for that matter, or even Mark Kelly, Mr. China himself. They were afraid of Andy Bashir. Because the only real impact that a VP can have, as we have stated over and over, is to maybe allay some people's fears. Bill Clinton picks Al Gore. Don't worry. We're not that crazy liberal that the Bushies are trying to get you to think we are. We're not soft on crime, Michael Dukakis. We're not crazy liberals. We are Southern conservative Democrats. We feel your pain, but we're not nutcase liberals. Al Gore goes on to make a huge mistake, reinforces his wing because people got to know Gore and realized he was not his daddy's son. And he picks Lieberman. The Jewish factor was not a factor back then with either party. It really was not. Despite what you hear from the media, it's BS. But it did reinforce that he was more of an interventionist than Bill Clinton was. He was more aggressive. People were tired of it. They wanted to focus on the American economy. George Bush ran around saying we can't be the police of the world. Nobody really knew who Dick Cheney was, but Dick Cheney reinforced his image as like a down-to-earth cowboy. During that town hall debate, you have this robotic, elitist liberal Al Gore like looming over the cool, I want to have a beer with George Bush. Bush turns around, bro, bub, get off my back, bro. Like kind of gives him a look, and it was just so, and Lieberman just reinforced that. Lieberman was such a hawk. They lost New Hampshire because of that. Because Gore was seen as too hawkish. New Hampshire was a much different state back then than it is now. By the way, Bush would go on to lose New Hampshire for the same reason when he ran for re-election in 2004. He became the neocon. He became the interventionist. He became what he told voters Gore was. Worse. And while he won re-election by the skin or the hair on his chinny chin, a few thousand votes in Iowa, less than a point, he lost New Hampshire, which was we don't use the I word here. The isolationist thing is a derogatory term used to paint smart people who don't want to die in stupid wars as some kind of extremist or something. That's BS. Non-interventionist. That's what New Hampshire was back then. Low taxes, socially liberal, non-interventionist. And then you fast forward a little bit and you have somebody like Barack Obama. He's young. He's black, but that's not really it. He's radical, man. But the country's doing so bad because Bush and the National Review crowd destroyed the country and the economy and blew through our peace dividend, squandered our wealth and the blood of our sons and daughters. People overlooked it, or were willing to at least. You know what? Yeah, man. He goes to some crazy ass church. Yeah, man. Sounds like he snorted coke while he was in college. He may even have slung a couple 8 balls to, to have some money for clothes and food. I don't like it. Bill Ayers, what? But you know what? I don't know. Does it even matter? Because these so-called, good guys fucked everything up. Maybe we give somebody else a chance. And look, he picked an old white guy from the South, from a part of Delaware. That was before he was Scranton Joe, you see. Okay. Biden has reinvented himself myriad times. We needed to make sure that, this was antebellum Joe Biden. You feel me? That was a really smart pick. Even Trump picking Pence in 2016 was a smart pick. It said, this guy has said things about trade before. So, for the new Trump voter, I can dig this. I can get behind this. He's a governor from Indiana. That makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. And yet, he's got a brother who's a typical rhino fake conservative, best friends with Paul Ryan. And that appeases the Shapiro, Mark Levin crowd. You know what I mean? Not to be confused with Josh Shapiro. And hell, it'll make people like Bill Kristol and the rest of them who were never Trumpers, or like Cheeto-faced Glenn Beck, who has since come a long way. And make them look stupid because, of course, when their guy, Ted Cruz, got his endorsement, Mike Pence was the bomb. Now that's a real conservative. That's a real Christian. Mr. Evangelical. So you look kind of dumb if you don't support Trump now that he just picks the evangelical. So that again was a pick that reinforced something and calmed or allayed some people's fears. Allayed people's fears. Does Tim Walz do that for her? Does he? I don't think so. He doesn't broaden their appeal. I actually think if you were trying to reach out to some of those Republicans and independents that are otherwise inclined to vote for Donald Trump, Andy Bashir would have allayed people's fears. He would have put people at ease. Have you ever heard that guy, by the way? Apparently, Roy Cooper wouldn't do it. Apparently, Roy Cooper is among upwards of 7 other, so 8 in total. Anywhere between a half dozen to 8 is what I heard. It could be a little less. Maybe that's embellished a little bit, but I already know the names of several of them, which includes Roy Cooper, who decided first when the call came, I'm honored, and yeah, I'll do it, of course. And then had a week to stew on it and thought to himself, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think she can win. By the way, Barack Obama doesn't think she can win. It's funny. Nate Silver disagrees with his boss or his former boss. Roy Cooper thought he had a better chance being elected as a Democrat to the U.S. Senate than he did being the vice president for Kamala Harris. And he's not alone. There were other people reportedly who believe, and I'm telling you, I know, this is not even a secret really here. that they bowed out. Shapiro supposedly is, they're reporting that he kind of like bowed out at the last minute too. That's BS. They don't want you to know that maybe he did, but only because the smear campaign from the anti-Semitic wing of the party was just too much. It was too much. And even Van Jones knows it. There was a lot more coming. The man could have had real family problems if they were going to continue to come at him the way they were. Like, there are things that can hurt your family. Forget about your standing as the front runner for the vice presidential nominee. There are things that can really hurt your family. All right. And they were like, it's nothing the media hasn't covered for Democrats for. It's nothing outside of that. So why was it so important to them to highlight this? Ted Kennedy kills a girl, drinking and driving, leaves her to die, even though she was not dead when he ran like a coward. Media covered it up. The Cuomos have apparently sexually abused or sexually harassed. I don't know. I was going to make up some ridiculous statistic to make you laugh, but somebody will probably take it for real. But apparently half the women in the 5 boroughs, and nobody gave a shit. Bill Clinton, there are more than 3 accusations, credible accusations of rape against Bill Clinton. Nobody gave a shit. The new Netflix documentary about the Lolita Express and that disgusting Epstein Island has firsthand testimony from contractors who say they saw Bill Clinton doing stuff. Nobody reported about this Netflix documentary. Nobody cares. So there's nothing that I know about that the media would not, and then this, I'm not saying it's not bad. It is bad. He had a lot of skeletons in the closet, Shapiro. He did. I mean, the one thing alone with him trying to cover for his friend was bad. Very bad. I mean, if you allow a girl to be abused and use the power of your office to do it, to cover for your friend, that's disqualifying. Disqualifying. This is not just a small little thing of, oh, I was trying to chase this girl down and she just didn't, she rebuffed my affections. That's not it. This is worse than that. This is, my boy is a powerful man, so you're going to give it to me whether you want to or not. That's what that was. And the media would have covered for it. It's nothing they haven't covered for. Let's be real. Why him? Why him? Why was it such a big deal? Because for Josh Shapiro, who, by the way, gave the best stump speech out of all of them last night in Philadelphia. Did you guys watch it? It was the best. She said good evening 11 times in a row. It was so awkward after being followed by this old white guy who was pretending to be hokey, but looks like that creepy, weird dad who's going through a post midlife crisis and is sitting in the basement with a weight bench smoking weed with these crazy glasses on that he thinks looks cool, that he got customized from Ray-Ban, and he just bought a new 82-inch screen that he's watching football on, but he's really fat and old. And he's got these purple veins running down his leg, and he's got this towel switched over his shoulder because he thinks he's getting buff or something. And then when you have your friends over, he's looking up the skirt of the younger girls and making them all uncomfortable and shit. That's Tim Walz. That's what he comes across as. He gives this awful speech. It's not hokey at all. What the hell you're talking about? Shapiro gives a barn burner, man. A barn burner. And what you're hearing is, everyone heard this. For 45 minutes. I'm going to tell you what the sound was. It was the collective sigh of Republican consultants all around the country, breathing a sigh of relief that they didn't have to run against that guy. He was that good, midget or not. And by the way, you really should listen to Jack Posobiec yesterday tell the story about how we met Josh Shapiro. It's hilarious. But the guy's good. This isn't a Van Jones. Let's see what Van Jones thinks. Why is it
And he's
Do you
he's
think
gonna
it was
do
a little risky, though, Dan,
Yeah.
that she didn't go with Shapiro to kind of lock down Pennsylvania? I mean, yes,
Yeah.
David Challenger was saying earlier, just because you pick him as your running mate doesn't mean you automatically win Pennsylvania. But I got to think it would have helped just a little bit.
Hey, listen, that
I gotta think it would have helped just a little bit. Is a far cry from, oh my God, Pennsylvania's gone.
the conservatives, the right wing, the Republicans, they were chewing their fingernails down to the knuckle
Yep.
because they were afraid of a Josh Shapiro. They were
Yep.
afraid of a Mark Kelly. They're not as afraid of this
not afraid,
new
yeah.
governor because they think they can define him. But so here's the challenge you've got in this party. And people don't want to talk about it. We got to talk about it.
Before he brings it up, the word I would use to describe the reaction to Shapiro being the expected nominee that I got from talking to lawmakers, consultants, advisors, panic. In a word, panic. In a word, those very same people, after she picked Walz, elation.
On the one hand, you have a lot of young people who are concerned about Gaza. You have a lot of Muslims and Arabs and others. They have not felt seen by the Biden administration. You start hearing that genocide joke. That was building. And so those folks needed to have a candidate that they could feel comfortable with. This helps them in that regard. But you also have anti-Semitism that has gotten marbled into this party. You can be for the Palestinians without being an anti-Jewish bigot, but there are some anti-Jewish bigots out there. And there's some disquiet now, and there has to be. How much of what just happened is caving into some of these darker parts in the party? So that's going to have to get worked out. It's going to have to get talked through.
Good for you, Van. I'm serious, man. Come on, guys. Give it up for Van Jones. That's not easy to say on CNN. That's not easy to say. And he's trying to minimize it, but the truth is, it's a huge amount. Look at the uncommitted vote in Michigan. Look at the vote against him in those counties we were just talking about in Minnesota. You don't pick a running mate from Minnesota when you could have somebody like Shapiro from Pennsylvania if you aren't A, concerned that you could still end up like Joe Biden or really close to it, and you don't want to be totally humiliated and lose Minnesota. And B, because you're not afraid of the anti-Semitic wing, the growing anti-Semitic wing in the Democratic Party. Last night, Cori Bush, who is an anti-Semite, lost her primary for U.S. Congress. I'm just going to say, all right. And actually, I believe we have that. Do we have that? We do. Wesley Bellbeater, we have that thing. Let's put it up, please. Let's grab this. 1 second, guys. She gave me all this stuff, but she left, so I'm doing it on my own. All right. She put up everything. She got every single map. There it is. This is close. This is close. And it's Missouri. It's not Minnesota. It's not Michigan. Sure as hell ain't Dearborn, Michigan. And Wesley Bell barely beat her. Let's get real. Barely beat her. This party is anti-Semitic. There's no other way to talk. I cannot believe. Could you imagine if Donald Trump didn't pick his running mate that everyone knew was the better running mate? Donald Trump didn't do it because he caved to Jew haters in the Republican Party. Could you imagine if that was a narrative? Or that was a thing? Because the fact of the matter is Republicans don't have this anti-Semitic wing. There's a new right. Don't get me wrong. There's like the Nick Fuentes wing of the party. They don't like Israel. They don't like Jews. But he's not really indicative of the modern Republican Party. Certainly not under Donald Trump, whose daughter married a Jewish man and converted. I mean, the whole idea that they ever tried to paint Donald Trump as an anti-Semite is ridiculous. He's the only president, and they all promised it, to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Let's face it, there is no anti-Semitic element to really speak of in the Republican Party. The anti-Semites, the Jew haters, we're back now to the pre-World War II era, are in the Democratic Party. Because here's a dirty little secret nobody ever wants to tell you. Historical fact. We were not oblivious to what the Nazis were doing to the Jews for as long as everyone wants you to think we were. Progressives didn't give a shit because Roosevelt, great example, followed right in Woodrow Wilson's footsteps. They believed the Anglo-American alliance was special because the Anglo-American race was superior. It was a superior breed of European. Even Southern Europeans were somewhat dirty. You know, Italians, Germans, definitely Jews. Eastern Europeans, not as good. Not as good. This is the eugenics party. Let's get real here. So the Democratic Party is back to their pre-World War II anti-Jew roots. And I'm stunning to me that this isn't a greater part of the conversation, considering how long the media tried to get the public, and this is in my interest to talk about, how the media BSs and how the media propagandizes matters to me as a public pollster. How they impact public opinion matters to me as a public pollster. They tried to paint the Republican Party as anti-Jewish for years, decades. And now all of a sudden, the fact that 46% in a Democrat, not Republican primary would vote for a Jew hater is not a big deal. The fact the vice presidential nominee knew which one was the better choice, but couldn't do it because he was Jewish is not a big deal. We're supposed to pretend it was something else in Josh Shapiro's closet. Nothing in his closet isn't something akin to scandals that the media has had no problem sweeping under the rug for Democratic candidates for years. Years. Give me a break. Give me a break. This would be a massive story. Massive story. You would be hearing nothing about it. And then all through the Republican convention, if it was scheduled for August 10th, you would hear nothing but every night, so-and-so gave their speech today. Let's get back to how Republicans are Jew haters, shall we? Donald Trump delivered his convention speech. Jim, what do you think about it? But before we do, let's talk about how this party's a bunch of Jew haters again. That's what they would do. All convention long. 24/7 for 4 days straight. Today, Donald Trump delivered his vision for the country, but let's not forget they're all a bunch of Jew haters. Jim, what do you think about all these anti-Semitic guests being invited to speak tonight? Watch how many anti-Semites take the stage in between their coverage. You watch. Are those Republican campuses that are pumping out anti-Semites like a little factory, little anti-Semitic factory? We offshore factory jobs for sure. Instead, we have domestic Jew-hating factories called colleges all across the country. Let's talk about that, Jim. Unbelievable. And Republicans let them get away with it. Let them get away with it. A huge problem, of course, is that Fox News is a fraud. So let's tune in at 9 to hear Sean Hannity cite Nate Silver and talk about crime. What is the hang up on crime? I know we're over here and I'm about to end. And don't forget, I didn't tell you. How could you forget? Jack Posobiec, 2:30, Human Events. Tune in. What is the deal with Republicans trying to make every election about crime when nobody gives a shit? Crime was national poll, August 2024. Let's go. And soon, hopefully, like I said, we keep doing as well as we're doing with the public polling project. We're going to have to start doing August 7th, 2024, August 14th, or at least August 1st, 2024, August 14th, 2024. If we could do bi-monthly, I don't know about you guys, I'd be stoked. Absolutely stoked. Let's zoom in. Okay. Most important voting issue. I'm not sure they're even in order, but we can go through it. They're not in order yet. Crime and safety. 3%. All they're talking about is crime. Even when they try to hit Walz, they do it from the wrong angle. You hit him from the right angle when it comes to he let Minnesota burn and then Kamala Harris bailed out the terrorists. That's how you deal with this. Crime rates. You go find that woman, by the way, the St. Paul Tribune, I believe, interviewed or whatever the hell that paper is called. Go find that middle-aged black woman who didn't even have a grocery store to go shop at after Tim Walz and his wife smelled the burning tires and did nothing as the riots went down in 2020. And then Kamala Harris made sure that the perpetrators who took out her family grocery store and every other place that she was able to shop, because, by the way, they can't keep the buses running. So she can't even get further out to another store. Why isn't that woman in a Trump ad right now? It's not about the crime. Nobody cares about the crime. Nobody cares about crime rates. They care about their standard of living and their way of life. It's like every 4 years, they force the electorate to try to they try to force the electorate, and it doesn't work. They try to force the electorate to recreate the conditions that led to Nixon's overwhelming win. When crime actually was a big deal and it was like law and order candidacy, you can't force the electorate to believe in something, especially when you don't win the information war against your opposition. Acknowledge their reality. Look at cost of living is way ahead. Immigration, border security is number 2. Why do only 36% of the country, why are only 36% of registered voters able to correctly identify that Joe Biden chose Kamala Harris and in fact entrusted Kamala Harris to fix the crisis at the southern border? 36%? That's a failure. That's a great job by Democrats, major failure by Republicans. I don't know what you're waiting for. There are Harris ads running all over my television. And by the way, you don't know how to reach suburban women? Run the ads before their damn YouTube Kids shows. You have any children? Go to YouTube Kids and pop on an ABC video. You're going to see Roy Cooper and Kamala Harris back to back every video you click on. You need me to spell this out for you? It's pathetic, honestly. And yet you panic over a perfectly tenable situation. $2:30, human events. All right. And then, oh my God, 5, live at 5 with Battleground Live with Sean Parnell. We had a good, he was filling in for Wendy Bell this morning. We had a great conversation. Man, I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely love Sean Parnell, man. What a great guy. A victim, him and his family both, of this unfair, disgusting system that we have. And we've allowed this to become. We've allowed it to become this. This is our fault, honestly. Time to take responsibility. We've allowed these people to do this to us. 5 p.m., of course, on Rumble. Keep an eye on my social media, and I'll, of course, send it out. Human events, I'll, of course, retweet it, but you guys know where to find Jack. We can go on Rumble right now, Real America's Voice. You can go to Human Events on X. And, of course, I think he's streaming right on X, if I'm not If I'm not mistaken, I believe he does. And it's like one of his biggest audiences come from X. But in about 25 minutes, I'll be on there. So I'm going to shut up now and we're going to go here. And I'm going to prepare for that. Get myself, well, I'm going to get a cup of coffee before I have to do it. That's what I'm going to do. And then 5 p.m., I'll be on Sean Parnell. So don't miss it. Share the Public Polling Project far and wide. Share the Public Polling Project far and wide. We're so good. Let's keep up the momentum. God, let's take a look real quick where we're at right now. And the link is in the description as always. But if you ever get lost or you ever need a way to do it, you can go to bigdatapoll.com. In the menu, you just see it right there, the Public Polling Project. If you click on the top menu, the top level menu, it'll take you right there. If you click on the little arrow to show you what's underneath, you will have a list of all of your activity that you ever had as long as you make an account when you sign in. All right, and I'm not doing anything with that information. It's just for you to have as your records. You can print out receipts. You can look at your record of contributions. There's the donor dashboard there, donor history, receipt request, which you do all automatically, right? But, contribute if you can. Share it far and wide. We're doing great, actually. 65% of that summer, I called it summer 2024 because I didn't know whether or not we would even fund the project that we just did. And we're already 65% of the way. And by the way, the Peach State poll crossed to 54%. We'll be able to do Georgia. I don't want to give you hopes, but it's up there. All right. So let's, if we can keep up this momentum, it'd be great, guys. Let me tell you this. Legacy media and the election mafia hacks would love this project to fail. They hated the expose in the New York Post in 2020. They were like, this guy cannot continue to do this. Like, this is bad for us. They hate it. They hate it. It's too transparent. Gender and race. What are you doing, dude? You can't show people raw data. Those are secrets, bro. Don't tell people what goes into voter models. That's where we fudge it, man. They hate this project. You really want to stick thumb in their eye? Let's make it successful. All right. With that in mind, I'm kicking rocks. I'm out like trout. Don't forget, 23 minutes now. Human Events with Jack Posobiec. Nothing but love for you. Thank you.